status of the homework situation?
I have most people's paper. The only people who I don't have their paper, they just stop and just to let me know what's going on.
You all can hear me well?
I can hear you.
Too.
So that's your phone?
Yeah.
For those who did the project or the homework, any reflections on it? Any comments on it about your process?
It was really great because it was great because as you're writing it and as you're thinking about it, it's like you're reflecting upon your own personal life and kind of where you are at in your journey, and you're able to kind of exposes your, strengths and areas for improvement, kind of like to yourself. So I found the way that I wrote it, which is, basically kind of in reflection to, myself based on the things that I have been through and, what I have learned, and then how the virtues themselves kind of, hold me accountable, so to speak. So for me, it was kind of like a, because when I first started here, and I was asked, why did I come here? I said, Spirit guided me, but Spirit guided me because I knew I needed healing. Mm-hmm. And I felt that doing the paper itself really kind of made me feel proud of where I have come to. I think one thing that I tend to do is really be stuck in my own head and not give myself enough credit for where I am at. And it really, allowed me to realize that I have come a long way, and it is a process, and I am in the process of becoming, I will always have a mentality like, I want to get to this place. I want to be that person, not realizing that I am already that person, but it's just a matter of, maintaining it. So going through, the assignment, looking over the notes to kind of give you, reference points and stuff like that. It really felt like a healing for me because I was really able to see that I have been doing some work. So it's kind of like, be proud of that. And you still have things to improve on, and it's okay. Like, it's not, it's okay. So for me, I really appreciate it. It just, it kind of allowed me to put everything that we've learned, everything that I honestly learned thus far as Kemetic culture, period. Because before I even came to the temple, it was kind of already like in my spirit, it was kind of drawing me, and I would, like watch lectures and read books. So I felt like doing the assignment, like physically kind of forced me to look at what I have been applying, and if it has been working, and if it hasn't been working, what was I doing, what wasn't I doing? So I really appreciated it because I definitely felt like I am healing, like I am in the process of becoming. So don't be so hard on yourself, Do I?
For me, it made me realize that I had to take a long, hard look at myself. And there was just some things about me that I didn't like, and I would have not put on there, but I realized I had to put it on there anyway because I had to put the complete picture on it. So, and it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Like, some questions were just really easy to answer, and I did it within like 5 minutes. But other questions, I had to really look and sit and think and just marinate on the answer. Mm-hmm. And when I read it back, I'm just like, wow, like, I really wasn't expecting to say it. And then, answering some questions gave me clarity to answer some other questions. So it helped out each other.
You wanted to add or?
Sure.
The assignment was actually, I almost broke down doing the assignment because I was like, oh my God, like, I've come such a long way from how I used to deal with problems. And I had to take a big look at myself and say, hey, I was here and now I'm here, and thank God for that. I'm so happy to be here as well to do this assignment, because there were times in my life where I didn't know what to do and I was spiritually lost. And but this assignment helped me heal, just like Ashley Scott said. I went through a healing process, I went through a cleansing process, and I had a great chance to reflect on the steps from the beginning of my problems, and now I'm at the end where I can say, okay, I'm over that. Now I feel better about myself. So it was a great project and experience.
Come on, y'all online. Don't let the people in the room hog up the intimacy.
I'll go next. It was a good experience for me because of how reflective it made me, and it actually kind of brought the storyteller out of me. I do a lot of reflecting in the work that I do, and I don't often have the opportunity to share with my clients my personal experiences around certain situations. So they're always very general and basic and generic, but with some of the virtues, I was able to be more specific and share examples directly related to my life, in particular my childhood, or times when I was working in a capacity with other people, and just what those experiences were like for me, and how some of the virtues related to just evolution in general, of becoming an adult, and all the experiences you have in many different areas of your life. So that was interesting. I had a chance to kind of laugh at myself a few times, and I changed my mind a couple times about what I wanted to talk about, because there were so many ways that I could have gone with each virtue, and I decided to just kind of go with whatever felt the lightest on my heart to talk about, and to really just focus on reflecting on how I have become so solution oriented and capable of recognizing when to assert certain virtues or principles, especially in the Kemetic legacy, in my everyday life, no matter what circumstances come up, that there's always a virtue I can apply to any circumstance, a way for me to check myself, a way for me to understand somebody else that I'm dealing with, and just to apply them, like I said, just in every area of my life, which that's a pretty powerful feeling to have, knowing that there's really nothing outside of those 10 virtues that I can't directly deal with, just using tools and, like I said, principles from each of them. So dua for even including them in the course, that we get to have those to help guide us and help us in living the lives that we are seeking to live righteously.
Dua. Keandra, you was hiding the last class. It's time for us to hear your voice. She had the black screen and everything. I forgot you.
I tried to fix my lighting. Look. No, I was. Well, what was brought to my attention about the paper was the first, or the August 31st, and I put that in my paper, like when you gave us charges about like what outcomes we wanted to seek from taking the class, and it was a reoccurring theme that like I had a lot of like intimidation, like even going into the whole project. I was like, I can't do a 10-page paper, and I'm just sitting there like up until the last minute. I was talking to people, and I was like, I don't know like, what to do, and I was letting a lot of like the intimidation block me, and so I really had to sit down and think about it, and like everyone else said, it was a big, we did have a lot of reflection. And I did have a lot of reflection, and it almost was to me like, things that I already knew, but I was kind of procrastinating on, and like, it was just very, very a reoccurring theme. So doing the paper, I kind of know exactly, like what I need to work on, and I need to stop blocking myself or self-sabotaging, and just move forward with it. So those are my comments.
Anybody else?
I'll say something. First of all, I enjoyed the homework assignment. There were times when I felt a little overwhelmed because I really didn't know how I wanted to approach it. On one hand, I wanted to provide some sort of a backstory in terms of what the 10 virtues might have looked like in ancient times to those initiates going through the mystery school. In which case, I referenced, I have a lot of books on Kemetic spirituality, Dr. Muata Ashby, Routner Amen, some historical references, Tony Browder, so on and so forth, obviously yours. So I try to reference those to kind of put into my mind or kind of mentally take me back to that time period and amongst those people to see or to kind of gauge what it might have looked like to them and then kind of measure, myself or ourselves up to that. It made me, well, I get going back to when I was in college, I pledged Alpha Phi Alpha when I was in college. So it made me look at the pledge process as an initiation process. And then let me see. All right, to be blunt, my pledge process was it was none of this. It was abusive. It was psychologically, verbally, and physically abusive. And after I stayed through it and I crossed, but afterwards, I swore to myself that I would never allow myself to be subjected to that sort of treatment again. Even though I was very intrigued by Freemasonry, I thought to myself, if Freemasonry is anything remotely like what I had to go through to become an alpha, then either I'm not going to do it or, somebody's going to get hurt, whether me or them. So at any rate, it took me a long time to delve into Freemasonry, but I had friends at the prison where I worked, many of whom were Masons, some of them Shriners, and we talked about it at length for years and years, and I eventually went through it. So I look at these 10 virtues and I kind of measure up my initiation process to Master Mason, to Holy Royal Arch Mason, and now the 32nd degree Mason and Shriner. I measured this up with this, and there is, I guess, a recurring theme with me in that I haven't been satisfied. What I was looking for, what I was searching for, perhaps in joining Alpha and even in joining the Masons, even though I've learned a lot and I've met a lot of, good people and so on and so forth, there was still a desire and eagerness to know and to understand more deeply that hadn't been met. And when I got into studying, more seriously studying Kemetic spirituality and initiation with the Son of Ma'at, it pulled all of that together for me. Though just like with the body of Asar being dismembered and a set searching and putting all the pieces together or finding the pieces, pardon me, and then reassembling them, I kind of felt like or I feel like that's my story. So this kind of made me look at, in retrospect, look at all the initiation processes, if you want to call it that I've been through, that I've been exposed to, and not just how they measure up, but the fact that these serve, for me at least, as the pieces to my puzzle. And it wasn't until coming here that all of this now, all of the madness that I went through, it all kind of makes sense, if you will. Oftentimes we go through things and you're not able to see things in a certain perspective, and you become emotional about it, maybe angry and distraught, and you withdraw. You quit. And a lot of times, you know, with me, whether it's been with martial arts, whether it's been with sports, whether it's been with, you know, unfortunately, my marriage, not so much when things got difficult, but when things, I don't even know how to describe it. But at any rate, you could say that I quit. I threw in the towel and I said, I don't need this, whatever this might have been. And this showed me, you know, this is exposing to me that, like, for instance, I'll give you a more specific example, like being free from resentment when wronged or under persecution. You know, I regard myself as a nice person, you know, a genuine person, you know, gracious, whatever. And like anybody else, I don't really care for people to talk slick to me or to, you know, act or come at me some kind of way. And granted, that may be from either growing up in East Orange or being in the prison system for the past 20 years. So you feel some kind of way, and it kind of incites you or provokes you to want to act a certain way in response. And reflecting on the 10 virtues of an initiate, I know and understand that I'm held to a higher standard. Not even so much by anyone else, but by myself. You know, when you know better, you're supposed to do better. So I'm expecting of myself to respond or react better than perhaps what I've done in the past. I had, you know, everyone in the, between people on Facebook, everyone in the conscious, so-called conscious community, or being in my background is Muslim, I had an argument, if you will, over Facebook with Muslims in regards to Kemetic spirituality. And even though they weren't talking about us, they were talking about another group, I think that's overhead by a Caucasian woman in Chicago. They nonetheless talk, typical Sunni Muslims, talking ignorantly about Kemet, about Kemetic spirituality and so on and so forth. And so at first, my intention was just to educate them. And it ended up being an argument. And it wasn't until after the fact where I I don't remember the sister's name, but she's affiliated with the Temple of Anu. And she posted on her page, but I got it in the feed about, you know, conducting yourself as a certain way as a person of Kemetic spirituality and not attacking or responding in an attacking manner our brothers and sisters who still practice the Abrahamic faith. And instantly it hit me. It was a slap, you know, a slap in the face, was a wake up call. Like, wow, that's one of the 10 virtues of an initiate, you know, to be free from resentment, you know, when wronged or when you perceive yourself to have been persecuted. So it's very therapeutic, very educational, you know. It exposes, you know, to me, you know, my hypocrisy, if you will, my shortcomings. But that's good because that's a part of, you know, as a doctor, you have to know what the disease is in order to kind of go to work. So to cure the patient. So it's good. It's good. So I enjoyed that. Unfortunately, I didn't finish it. It became so, you know, so overwhelming. It became so much, or I made it out to be that. So unfortunately, I haven't finished yet. I'm about 3/4 of the way done, but I should have it done by tomorrow.
Fadil went in. We ain't heard him say like 5 words the whole class. Like, did a whole dissertation. Talk about he ain't finished yet. He like, I'm only like 3/4. Like, yeah.
I'm saving you.
Nice.
Yeah. What are some of the things they're saying about Kemetic spirituality? I'm curious that got you upset like that.
Like I said, typical, like, and I even, you know, commented to them that it seems to me that Muslims have become the new Christians, you know, really don't know. First of all, they take much, if not everything, literally. And I remember a brother told me you know, he said, Aki, if it's not in the Quran and it's not in the Hadith and won't get you to paradise, leave it alone. So they're like in a box, you know what I'm saying? They have blinders on, and they don't, you know, I mean, and now mind you, this is the Sunni Muslims I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the Nation of Islam. Like, you know, my family was in the Nation of Islam, and then they transitioned to quote unquote mainstream Islam, and then I went back to the Nation of Islam. But so I'm not even talking about the Nation of Islam brothers, even though, you know, they have their thing with Africa and so forth too. But just saying that, you know, it's a false religion. They were talking about, you know, it's polytheistic. What else did they say?
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. She said idol worship. The sister in the room said the accusation of idol worship.
In this particular discussion, there was no mention of idol worship. They bottom line, it was because it's not Islam, it's false. That's really what it boiled down to. And I even tried to explain and correct them on some of, you know, the things that they were saying that they thought was Islam, but was not. And it was a battle. It was like it was a lot of them kind of, you know, going at me, and none of them addressing. One of the things that I was saying to them is this: as Muslims, you know, you get upset when people, particularly here in the West, say things about Islam in ignorance. You take offense to that. And in some cases, jokers want to fight. Why would you turn around knowing nothing whatsoever about Kemetic spirituality in specific? And I even said to them, I don't think you can read Medu Netter. And if you can't, you really don't know what you're talking about. So it would be wise that you just be quiet. And rather than dealing with the issues that I brought up, like, proves to me that it's false. They just kept saying, well, brother, you know, Allah sent his messenger Muhammad, peace be upon him, with the only religion, and, you know, he's quoting me Quran, and he's quoting me Hadith, and I'm like saying to myself, you missed me with that Hadith stuff. You could stop that, bro. I don't. There's too much garbage in the Hadith for you to give me that. But it got to the point where I just quoted to them Surat al-Kafirun, where I just said simply, to you be your way and to me be mine, because it became pointless. In fact, in trying to be like neutral, not say Allah, not say Neter, I just simply said, you know, the divine or the divine force. So one keyboard gangster said, brother, you need to leave that Star Wars stuff alone. You know, we're not even on the same level. So I'm like, wow, Star Wars. Okay, well, you're right. We're not on the same level. And I mean, it was a stupid conversation, and I was upset with myself for even allowing me to be lured into that. You know, knowing how Muslims are, knowing the mentality of the Sunni Muslims. And then I felt bad because it was on the Facebook page of my Snooker's Rue Jiu-Jitsu instructor. And I kind of felt like, you know what, I'm disrespecting his page by putting all this, inciting all this garbage on his page, even though he was co-signing what they were saying, you know.
Wow.
So I even had to, I haven't been back to train with him since then. I had to start to reevaluate because of a lot of things that he said and a lot of the beliefs that he's held. I had to reevaluate if I want to continue to train with him. Now, the martial arts training that he gave me was excellent, but I don't want to hear his version of Islam. I don't want to hear it. And
is that part of the martial arts training to have to hear that?
I'm sorry?
Is that part of the martial arts training that has to hear teachings on Islam?
Not necessarily, but being that many people who train Sanukas are Muslims, it just kind of, you know, and Dr. Moses Powell, having been a Muslim himself, it just kind of goes with the flow. And, you know, I just don't want to hear it, especially since I think that what he is calling Islam and what they are calling Islam is garbage. It really is not Islam, you know, but Salafi Muslims, Sunni Muslims think that, and in fact, one of the brothers even quoted this. He said, you know, there's 73 sects of Islam or of Muslims, and everybody except one has gone astray. As if to say, you know, that's his explanation for me. I don't know. You know, but they believe that they're right, nobody else. So it was a bad conversation. It was garbage.
Okay, it's interesting. There was a commonality in the theme of everything that everyone was saying. I think everyone come to the conclusion that Kemetic spirituality is for grown folks, right? And that it exposed your own immaturity inside. And now you see the significance of how a person's mind or your whole being has to be in a certain state and space before we can even talk about nation building, right? Like, here, this one assignment just gave you all a revelation, an unrevelation. So what's going on with the rest of the community? Mm-hmm. Now you see it when, according to African traditions, you're not considered an adult till you went through rites of passage, till you gone through initiation. And initiation means, it's equivalent to baptism. It means to initiate. It means to begin, to be born again. So you got to walk different, talk different, eat different, sleep different, study different. Everything has to be different because clearly the way we've been doing things is not working. What they say, insanity is doing the same thing but expecting different results and stuff. So now, add to the conversation this, like, what would our nation or our community be like if everybody took heed of the 10 virtues? What do y'all think will happen in our community?
Trust. I think that if we all looked at these virtues, we would be able to trust each other, even though we're still, you know, we still got pain from, you know, what the Tom who did to us or what we allowed them to do to us. And a lot of people will look at themselves like, you know, I'm not perfect. I don't need to be perfect, but I'm me, deal with it. And then people can look at themselves and say that to them. And, you know, there could be money exchanges, learning from each other, and just, you know, respect. There'll be a mutual respect for the little differences on how we would go about practicing the legacy.
Definitely, to answer your question, the issue fundamentally is the fact that people are not reflecting upon themselves, which is what, you know, the 10 virtues is pretty much forcing you to do on so many different levels and in different perspectives. And to kind of tie into what Fidel was saying, you know, in particular with Islam, there's a lot of ma'at in Islam, but it's unfortunate how when you're not actively doing the work, it's like one thing to have knowledge, but wisdom is something completely different. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of people who have knowledge, but they don't have wisdom. Because for me, you know, growing up Muslim as well, very similar to you, it never, ever resonated with me until I got introduced to the Nation of Islam. And it kind of gave me the permission it gave me the permission to know that I am supposed to study, that I am supposed to question everything. I just can't allow things to be drilled into me because that's just the way it is. It's good enough for your father's good enough for you. So I feel like the biggest issue within our community is, even with Christianity, there's a lot of ma'at in these spiritual systems because they do come from, you know, that one mind. You know, it's man who has kind of manifested it and perverted it, you know, to make it work for themselves. So I feel like if we utilize tools like the 10 virtues to kind of really help us look within ourselves, because a lot of us, it's like, you can't genuinely love other people if you don't love yourself, right? You can't genuinely be accepting or forgiving or understanding of other people if you're not doing that within yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I know for myself, like, it really highlighted that for me. right? So it's like, if you're not doing the internal reflection, like all these religions to me, like honestly with Islam, I feel like if you really, really opened your heart to it and really saw the true wisdom in it, it would help you. And, if we all kind of had the mentality of, taking the knowledge we have, digesting it and, kind of evaluating ourselves on those levels to see how aligned we are with the particular principles, right? There would really not be an issue because we were not all meant to be the same on this planet. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we are here for. So it's kind of like we just keep creating these falsehoods because so many of us are not willing to do the internal work. Like, that's the hardest thing, to kind of look at yourself and be like, excuse my language, but shit, you fucking up. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. It's hard, especially when you live in a society that, it's like this one, think tank. Like, everybody wants to run away from hard work. So it's easy to find people who are not going to give you slack about, doing what you're supposed to do. But if you come across people who may not necessarily say something, but might have the energy to kind of expose your falsehood, it's very uncomfortable. So it's like, it's easier to fight than to kind of sit down and, have that, true discussion and honesty within yourself. So, and that's what those virtues do. They force you to kind of really look at yourself, and see that everything outside of yourself is a reflection of yourself. So how you interacting and relating is all a direct reflection of how you're interacting with yourself, how you're relating with yourself. And a lot of people are not willing to do that. And, and that's really the unfortunate part. I think that's the reason why we have an issue coming together as a community.
Yeah. I'd like to speak on it as well. In my reflection, one of the things that came to me was, although this is African-centered, this is not exclusively for African people. And in the work that I do, working with others who are not African, I find that in sharing these virtues just by way of living them, and being an example in our communities, even amongst other cultures of people, it still creates a vibration. And I feel like that's what has become essential for me in practicing them and taking them into my own practice, is that they are not exclusively for African people. And although we are African first in a lot of homes, African first in a lot of mentality and thought, I feel like in this case, it is an opportunity to show what that means, but it is also an opportunity to be inclusive of others in terms of how we model what that looks like. And I think one of the things that's a bit discouraging is that I actually have had more success in experiencing these virtues out of this context, but in relationship with people who were not African. And that saddens me, like, I don't really feel like I have had to have a conversation specifically about virtues in terms of how I was going to interact with another person who was an African when it comes to business, for example, whereas in an example that I might have with somebody who is African, they don't live these principles or virtues. So I'm, number one, being the educator to try to educate them on them. And then number two, even if I'm modeling them, or even if I'm living my life in this way, that doesn't automatically mean that just because somebody else is African that they are. And so often, I find myself being hurt by people who are African who don't live these virtues. And so it becomes an even more deeper task to maintain this lifestyle, not because it necessarily will bring us together, those people who are also living it, yes, but I feel like it's more about being that reflection that we want to see in those who are not living it, giving them that example just by way of how we live our lives, understanding that everybody's not going to subscribe to these 10 virtues, but we know what the energy, and the resonance does for us in our lives. It pulls in those people who are like-minded. And I just want to encourage everyone to be open to those people who are not African, but who are still like-minded and who are still living these virtues in their own way. I feel like at the center of it all, of course, we can say everybody's African for the most part, but in particular, I've really been able to have some time with some Native Americans who are a part of a group am a member of, and like a lot of their things are also ma'at. A lot of their way of life is also ma'at. Of course, I can tie that into how we're all African, but on the face of it all, you know, they're Native American and they have these virtues as a part of how they live their lives. Similar to a conversation that we were having in our Satesh group about Jewish people, how a lot of these virtues are in their doctrine and it's just how they live. It's not even that they're a virtue. It's just a part of the order and how they do things. And everybody who is subscribing to those virtues, that level of lifestyle, they come into unity with each other because they don't have to question the next person. They know if I do business with another Jewish person, it's going to be good. You know, they live by these principles, so we're going to be fine, as opposed to with us, I don't necessarily know if I meet another Kemetic person if they're doing this. You know, I can't really bet on that. I just can know that, you know, for me and my home, this is what we are striving to do. And in the Temple of Anu in particular, knowing that this is what is being taught and what people are exposed to, that this is an expectation that I can have of, you know, my temple family. And just hope, like I said, that energy continues to resonate on those who come into the temple, who come into my life and my family, and see the way that we live, that we can be that example.
Sure. Those are good points. And you just see the level of work that needs to be done and the significance of the children being born into it, because the children being born into it will live it like the Jews, because that's all they would know.
Right.
We're like double-minded right now, and we always think we got choices whether we're going to do something one way or another way. We're still, at any given time, in every situation, every circumstance, we're still fighting our old selves, and we're trying to be this new self. And like we all always go through this war, and we're kicking ourselves for our contradictions and things like that. But just see these 10 virtues as your secret weapon. We always talk about morals, and then there's ethics. The 10 virtues are your ethics. The 42 are the morals. Now you're all realizing that you can't live the 42 if you didn't have these ethics. These ethics, these 10 virtues is the grounding, the anchor to help you do justice to those 42. If not, the 42 is just 42 sentences on the paper that you're just looking at in this disconnected way, like, oh, this is something the ancestors done. But these 10 virtues are timeless principles. Like I said, they're things that came through us as Africans, but it's a human thing at the end of the day. And we're supposed to be the original human beings. So the onus is on us to always be the example. And it's shameful and embarrassing that she has experiences with other people outside the culture living it just freely or more spontaneously, and we just always make it this exercise. Like I think that what Asitat said, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. We got caught up in the knowledge and the acquisition of information, and we downplay wisdom. We downplay living it. Or just the conversation in the dialogue now is even downplaying things like initiation. They're even downplaying a lot of the sacred concepts in the African tradition because our people just don't want to have to be disciplined at the end of the day. That's the root of it. You're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have to check every word, thought, and idea next to ma'at. And then you have to decide, do you have the wherewithal and the discipline to stick with what you know to be true? But let's move on. Do it for your input. Kiana, did you want to say anything? I don't want to skip you just in case you wanted to add.
No, everyone said basically everything that I agreed with. So
today's class is supposed to be the language of the gods. So if you pay attention to how the class it flows from one level to the next. It's just a slow progression into your Kemetic enlightenment. So now, we speak a lot about Medu Neter. Now we have the Sept Su Senteti, and we always hear about Medu Neter. So there's Medu Neter and there's Sept Medu Neter. Sept Medu Neter, that's SESH. Medu Neter, that's the inscriptions of the words of God. So that's the written language. And then there's what you call Rani Kemet, RAN, what do you spell with a Y? Ykemet. That's the language of Kemet. And then there's Wefa, Wefa, and that's conversational meta. So there's many approaches to the language. I like to approach everything from a spiritual perspective. You all took the class because you want to know the inner dimensions of everything that we do. Because there's a lot of surface information. That's the difference between esoteric and exoteric. That's the difference between a Kemetic initiate and someone that claims they're into the quote-unquote Kemetic sciences. You cannot be in the Kemetic sciences if you don't live it. That's what African spirituality is about, whether it's Yoruba or Khan. You ain't going to know the secrets to know people till you actually live it. So even the deepest stuff you think you know is still exoteric. That's how it works. Move on to the next thing. So if the mind and divine speech are used as meant, you will not differ from the immortals in any way. That's on speech according to the Egyptian proverbs. And that's powerful. The immortals they're talking about, the ancestors, the enlightened beings, and the deity. It's talking about Karu, being true of thought, word, and deed. So in the streets we say, mean what you say and say what you mean. You should not have to constantly apologize for falling short. That shouldn't be a consistent word in your vocabulary. And if it is, then you're going to really have to check yourself. Yourself. Apologize. I apologize. That's become like a mantra and stuff. Like people don't want to do the right thing and they think they're being noble and righteous. I apologize. It's like, damn, you was just apologizing last time I seen you. Like, why are you always apologizing? When are you going to get your thing together? You cannot build your reputation on being a sorry-ass nigger. I'll be like, when people apologize, like, don't be sorry, just get it together. So it means what you say and say what you mean. So it's talking about men are mortal gods and gods are mortal men, so we supposed to be getting to a standard. So understand the deities don't lie. So why do you lie? They're in the book of knowing, the creations of Ra and overthrowing Apep. You have Ptah speaking about how he brought things into existence from the words coming out of his mouth. He said, when I spoke existence itself came into his existence. Many were the beings that came forth from the commands of my mouth. So this is the creator at the beginning, not getting in his own way. It thought a thought and spoke it into existence. And it pretty much the creator meant what it said and said what it meant, and therefore creation came into existence. So therefore speech is magical. That's the essence of magic, to mean what you say. Don't hope, don't have faith, and it's like, no, I thought, and we understand divine law, things start in the invisible, then they materialize through your will. So everything, every discipline that we do is about building our mind power and building our willpower. It takes a certain discipline to dress a certain way. It takes a discipline to speak a certain way. It takes discipline to show up for communion on time. It takes discipline to show up for all the holidays. So if you live this disciplined way of life, your mind becomes stronger. So now when you start praying and meditating and calling things into existence, your whole life was preparing you to be a reflection of the creator. So the creator uttered it with perfect consciousness and confidence. So now that takes into got to take into consideration speech is magical. So now we have to watch what we say to one another. So now if we understand that we're a reflection of divinity, then everybody's a reflection of divinity. So you should not be speaking sideways at nobody or saying hurtful things to no one or even thinking hurtful things, because it all starts with the thought. The thought is a wave. It sends forth a wave. And the more you feed it, the more things are going to come into consideration or into manifestation. So it all's good, and everything comes back down to knowing yourself. So now when you say hurtful things or unmindful things to another person, which is the creator, which is the reflection of yourself, that's the same as a curse. Remember in the 42 it says, I have not cursed. Nobody knew what that meant. And you're like, I haven't said fuck or shit. You're like, nah, they ain't talking about that. Those words wasn't even back then, so it couldn't have been talking about that. So these 42 and this 10 virtues put you on a serious self-introspection plan. And it's like, yo, I have to be careful. Oh, this God thing is serious. People say, I'm God, I'm divine being. Are you ready for that? That's the biggest responsibility in the universe. The Creator said, many were the things that I've spoken into existence. So everything that you're going through, everyone in your life and everything you're going through, you brought into existence. You're the creator of the play, the drama of your life. You got to take responsibility. So if you change, everything else change. Anyway, that's the essence of magic. So I'm going to just jump right into it. Tone, sounds, chants, and chants for meditation. The first bullet point says breathe in peppermint oil. We had, y'all used to that now. Peppermint oil increases the brain functioning by 28%. What did science used to tell us what percentage of the brain we used to use? 10%. So breathing in peppermint oil increases your brain function by 28%. So this is saying that you could breathe yourself into being smarter. So that's definitely one of the tools that should be part of your repertoire, that peppermint oil. So if you got to take a test, take peppermint oil and you'll increase your chances of success by 28% because your brain will be online. Breathing oxygenate, and it is the key in meditation. Meditation traces the thoughts back to the source. I think we went through this before. Meditation is just paying attention to your breath and dealing with whatever comes up. You're not meditating on any specific thing. You're not meditating for anything. You're just paying attention to what comes up. Remember, you exist in a non-local dimension, so the body ain't you anyway. So you got to slow this body down and shut it down so you can find out what you is trying to teach you or show you. So we have so many distractions in our lives that we don't even recognize where those thoughts and things are coming from. So we've lost perspective of between the forest and the individual at this point. Our lives are just filled with a bunch of distractions. So when you're just breathing and you slow it down, all of those thoughts are going to slow down. And you might have to do this for a month to meditate. You might have to practice certain things for a month just to meditate for 5 minutes. Meaning it might take you a half hour to get through a process just to learn how to authentically meditate for 5 minutes. So this is where people get discouraged from. So they sit down to meditate when there's a process to prepare to meditate. So when you're doing the peppermint oil and all that, that's not meditation, that's preparation for meditation. Some people think yoga is meditation. Yoga is preparation for meditation. It's stretching the body, clearing out the energy. So when you do finally sit down, everything is working properly and there's less obstructions to that meditative state.
Is it better meditation after you exercise, not before?
Yeah. Or you talk about just regular physical exercise?
Yeah, like So meditation before exercise, not after. How do you do it after? Or meditation after exercise. Essentially, we talk about like yoga being about stretching and opening yourself so that you're prepared to go to meditation. So exercise is for activity will do things in the same way that person is thinking
Yes. So now what she just said, or what we're teaching you, is you're ritualizing everything, but eventually your mind state is just going to be more meditative anyway. So you'll meditate. You'll be meditative before you even do the yoga. You'll be meditative through the yoga. You'll go into your exercise with peace of mind. And then after all of that, you can hit more blissful states in your meditation. So meditation is for clarity. There's two things meditation is for. Meditation is for clarity, and meditation is for raising energy. Y'all need to put that down. Most people don't say that. Like meditation has just become a new age word, and it's just abstract, and we've gotten away from what it really means. So raising energy, and for internal clarity. You need the internal clarity to hear your inner Netra's voice. And after you hear the voice or get the charge, you need the energy to live it. Sacred tone, focus, breathing, and tap into the higher self. Sacred tones tune the body using sacred vowels, balances the internal body. So you have the organs, a musical instrument. So each organ is a note or like a key, like a piano. So you have 7 keys, 7 major endocrine organs, so 7 so-called chakras. So when you're doing chants and stuff like that, those you can consider it like a libation of sound. You're bathing your organs every time you do Hesi. That's why song and dance is very important in African traditions. It's not just to the deities. It's fine tuning your instrument. You are the instrument of nectar. It says, do breathing exercises prior to sacred vows. So this is basic meditation. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and relax for 4 seconds. Next. I don't even have that in my notes. Nah, it's my first time saying it. So chanting is rhythmic prayer for toning purposes. Meditation is listening. Prayer is asking. Learn to listen because Parnetta speaks in silence. Listen twice as much as you speak. 2 ears for 1 mouth. Learn not to think. Most people's minds are too active with wrong things. So meditation is the art of not thinking. In martial arts, they call it no mind. You need to get this lower mind out the way so you can move authentically. That's what meditation is for, so you can move authentically tonight. Yes.
I found that when I meditate, like, obviously my mind is all over the place, but like I have an affirmation, and when I focus on an affirmation, like I feel like I'm getting benefit out of it. It's the thing. So, like, how does one not think? Like, I can't even imagine not thinking, because it's like when I try to not think, everything just flies. Like, I feel like, everything is just flying. So, like, when I focus on a particular affirmation, it kind of quiets it down. It's like my energy focused on that thing. So that's not considered meditation.
No, that's considered chanting.
I'm not speaking, I'm saying it in my mind.
Real chanting is supposed to be that way.
You can focus on the breath, and you won't feel like, But I be counting my breath. I be like, I feel with my peg. Like, I find myself counting. Counting is so interesting. That's what I'm saying. So, it's really about it's like muscle memory. So, like, you gotta build up your muscle memory with regards to, like, being able to turn your brain off. You have to keep trying to do it. Like, the problem, I think this is what we were saying a little while ago, like, the problem is people give up. And so then they default to things like visualization, chanting in their head, focusing on affirmations. They are types of meditation, but that's not like the no mind meditation, where you just totally clear out and allow yourself to.
That's the biggest thing for Africans, because it's not in our recent history to be meditative like that. We've always been given license to feed into our emotions or whatever thoughts that come up. So now if somebody come around and say, don't think nothing and don't feel anything, you're like, what? I just got to sit here and not do anything? Sitting and not doing anything, now you find out, is the hardest thing to do in the world. So everybody's trying to do all this stuff, make all this money so they don't have to work hard. But when it comes down to it, they won't sit still. If you gave them $1 million to sit down and not do nothing for 2 hours, they can't do it. So the key is you start with counting. So I say how I train people is start by count. Like, so the counting of the breath is the fundamental. It's just to quiet the mind down. So you ain't thinking about everything. All you got to do is think about this breath for a certain period of time. So I say 50 breaths. After 50 breaths, stop counting and see what happens then. So as opposed to just counting indefinitely. So what's going to happen is after 50 breaths, you'll be closer to an authentic state of meditation than you are counting the 50 breaths. Then After a month or so, it might only take you 25 breaths to get there. Then after some while, it might take you only 10 breaths to get there. And eventually you want your whole way of life to be meditative. You don't want to just ritualize meditation to this thing that you do for 10 minutes every day. You want to get up from your meditation and bring it into your life.
I had a reading, this is a Buddhakaya, I had a reading done maybe about a year ago, and it was said, two things mainly said that I needed to do, and that was to really acknowledge my ancestors every day and to meditate for an hour a day. I haven't quite gotten, I have meditated for an hour, but not consistently. But I would say since Wet Room Pat, I've been meditating every day. Okay, and what I noticed was, for example, the client came to me yesterday and she said her sister passed. And immediately I got downloaded and I was like, your sister's okay. I was like, is somebody in your family pregnant? She said, yes, my grandniece is pregnant. She's like, how'd you know? I was like, I don't know. I was like, does your sister have a mark or something, a specific birthmark on her body somewhere? And she said, yes. Like, I'm getting downloads and I'm talking to her and I'm like dead on and she's in tears. So I think when you really get into meditating, it opens you up to be clear enough that you will receive downloads from your ancestors, other people's ancestors, and other angelic forces.
Yeah. Okay, like, so none of this is in my notes, so all right. So meditation should be performed at sunrise, noon, sunset, midnight. Those are times for du'a also. So it could be either or. But those are the sacred times of the day when the energy is shifting. So you're in tune with the energy of the next cycle of the day when you take a few moments at these transition periods. So that way you stay the deity, you stay the divine being, you stay in control of your reality. Because if not, other people are in control of your reality. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't know du'a, right?
Oh, the which is right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I think you all online understood, like, du'a is the prayer from Art of Prayer. So those are the times you're supposed to do du'a. So if you don't know du'a, then you're supposed to be meditating. Du'a takes about 8 minutes to get through, so you should do an 8 to 10 minute meditation at these times of the day. These are the times of the day when the earth is refreshing and transitioning itself. So it's a way that you align yourself with the electromagnetic field of the planet. Once again, our goal is to stay a divine being at all times. So therefore, we stay in control, or we contribute to the reality and not just become victims of other people's reality, or just victims to haphazard thoughts that's in the electromagnetic sphere. That's what's really going on. So this keeps you clean mentally. All right, go next one. Here we go. Now we're getting into sacred vows and intonation. So sometimes some of the things that you all are going through, why you can't think, why you can't meditate, or why you struggle with certain things, is going to come down to your vibrations. Your vibrations are directly, your mind state is directly connected to your organs, the state of your organs. So these sounds, A, E, I, O, U, these are sacred vowels. And the vowels tune your organs. It's like tuning a piano. So your organs are going to determine what's going on in your aura. So your organs emanate your chakras, and your chakras together emanate your aura. So based off what's going on with your chakras and your auras, that's what's determining what realities get pulled to you. So if So now you're seeing A, E, I, O, U is connected to the immune system, spiritual system, respiratory system, kidneys, large intestines, and all of those organs are connected to emotions. So now you see there's a sacred approach to language. So now Medu Neter is a deep language because it's like on top, you see that's the actual Medu Neter for those vowels, A, E, I, O, U. So now Medu Neter is a deep language because, who speaks Spanish in here or another language? Anyway.
I do.
All right, so now you speak Spanish, but writing Spanish, you're still using the English letters to write Spanish.
Yes.
There's no meaning, there's little to no meaning to the characters that they use for the English language.
Correct.
Same with Arabic or any other language. I think Chinese is the only one that can compare to Medu Neter that the actual letters actually have a story. So can anybody tell me the difference between or the contrast between the right and left hemispheres of the brain? What is the right hemisphere known for?
Creativity.
Art.
Creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, art.
Art. And the left brain?
Just language.
And
So now you see the sacredness of Medu Neter. So Medu Neter uses both right and left brain. So the artistic side comes from actually drawing the language, and then the logic side comes from deciphering and interpreting the language. So don't let people just say Africans are right brain and Europeans are left brain. Like, no, we were whole brain. So now you start seeing with Medu Neter, when you take Medu Neter seriously, you actually get smarter. It actually builds your brain. It actually builds brain matter, and your brain gets bigger. And because remember, it's Medu Neter. Neter is the root to the word nature. So you're drawing nature. You're constantly contemplating nature. Therefore, you're dialoguing with nature. And nature is Neter, and Neter is law. So to involve yourself with a language like that in this different dimensions, you can only be a better person and a smarter person for that. And I think the only language, in my opinion, that could compare in vibration will be Sanskrit. Sanskrit is comparable in the sacred intonations, but the Sanskrit doesn't have the sacred or the meaning behind the letters and the tones. Who are the San people? I think they're the San people. They have the clicking language. So there's a connection between vowels and there's a connection between consonants. Yeah. They call the San.
I heard. Okay, this question the other day I was watching. And I was like, these people are like original people.
Yeah.
I'm constantly out and crazy. I'm just like, wow, this is some next level language. That is an interesting sound. Like, I always wondered, do they do that for the residents to bounce off the walls, like sonar, like the dolphins?
No, they say it's the star language. They say that's the language the stars, because the stars are light and they got like you hear neon lights and stuff, electricity sounds like that. So that's what they're saying. Yeah. So now we're going to try something so you can see where you're at, what's going on with your organs, what's going on. This is your self-diagnosis thing. So everybody sit up and you're going to take a breath. So we're going to see where your immune system and your lymphatic system is. So when we breathe in meditation, the key is breathing right, not with your chest. It's called pot belly breathing. This is how you get the maximum amount of oxygen in your body. So when you breathe out, your stomach expands. So you can put your left hand on your stomach just to make sure that you do it properly. So when you breathe out, the stomach, or you breathe in, the stomach expands. Hold, then exhale, and the stomach contracts. Now, the proper way when you exhale, you want to try to act like you're trying to touch your spine with your stomach. That's how you get all the foul air out, and you're just not being lazy about it. Because when you do that, when you release it, you're going to automatically bring in a whole lot more fresh air. So now breathe in, hold. Now exhale, you're going to go, So how long you're able to go is a way of determining the shape of the system that you're working on. So some of y'all got the immune system, the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is really all over your body. That's your white blood cells, they nerves. So some of it is here, some of it is under your armpit, some of it is your groin, or whatever. So you have your red blood cells and you have your white blood cells. The white blood cells are the ones that's supposed to eat up viruses, things like that. All right. Let's do E. That's the pineal pituitary hypothalamus gland. So that's your headquarters. Those three glands are responsible for all the hormones in your body. So let's breathe in. Release. Keep going, keep going. All right. Self-diagnosis. So now it'll be no more mystery. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, oh, my pineal. And now we're going to do the respiratory system. That's the long breathe in. Release. So I'm going to quit, so you know. I've been doing this a while, you know, couple decades. Let's do the O. It's the kidneys. This one is usually telling like usually when I go into a healing session, I treat people's kidneys first. Us as Africans and people, like, everybody's scared. You know, you're just trying to survive, and that's scary, paying bills and raising children and just not being clear your future or the steps that it takes to get in. So a lot of people are holding low grade fear and that don't even know it and stuff like that. And fear zaps your energy. And so when you're just looking like, why don't I have enough get up and go to do what it is that I'm supposed to do? And you realize you've been scared since you was a child. Mm-hmm. All right, let's do it. So breathe in. Hold. Go. She ain't never scared. No. Okay, good. So large and small intestines. So the large and small intestines, that's how you process things. So that's ooh, not you, but ooh. Breathe in. Release. Ooh. All right.
That was nice. That's what the vibration there. Like, that was wow. You know,
all right, so now, write in your notes, vowels tune and the consonants tone. Vowels tune up and the consonants tone up. The vowels are magnetic and the consonants are electric.
So I have a question. When I was in ICU in March, I was saying the alphabet, like, but I was raging. was I trying to tone into my body?
What you mean saying the alphabet?
Like, I was, before that I was really angry, and I went to ambulance and I passed out, but in my head I was saying A-E-I-O-U, but my sister told me I was saying the entire alphabet, but when I got to Y, I screamed it. Like, I started increasing as each letter that I was saying.
Did you know this already?
No.
That's what it was then. That's it. That's the ancestry right there. Vowels tune up and the consonants tone up. Vowels are magnetic. Consonants are electric. All right, so now here's some of the consonants, sacred consonants. So the S, the hissing sound is to alleviate grief. The sound is to alleviate anger from the liver. Sway releases fear from the kidneys. Ha or ha to alleviate panic from the heart. And who or ooh alleviate stress from or anxiety from the spleen. The spleen holds anxiety. All right, so you want to take your hand, make them warm. You want to place them at the upper register of your chest. For the same thing. So this is the lungs. So you want to, when you do this, you want to see two white orbs, like two white orbs in your hand. It's the color of the lungs for this exercise, white. So put them on your chest. Breathe in. Visualize the white. Breathe in. Release. While you visualize white, visualize your lungs glowing white. Hair ran out of air. Quiet. Flat tire. Not just one time. Y'all poop out. How you see? You got grief. The grief is the inability to accept what has happened. Write that down. So it's not just an abstract word. Grief is the inability to accept what has happened already. So you mulling something over and over in your mind, something that's past, and just because you didn't do what you're supposed to do back then, you're just holding on to it. So that creates a blockage in the lungs. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do the next one. So this time the color is green. So the lungs releasing something called bile. Bile is actually green. So you're going to take your warm hand, left hand on your right side, right hand over. Let's breathe in. Release. Visualize green glowing your liver. Visualize your liver glowing with green light.
I like that one. Yeah.
That's how you release negative energy from your body. It's no judgment. Everybody's on different levels. This is how you assess yourself. No one's perfect. Well, some days you're going to get them all good, and certain days you're going to not. And you just have to say, do I nurture that? You could self-diagnose yourself, and you will always know what's going on with you. Even when you ain't feeling like, damn, my heart is jacked. You're like, yeah, your heart is jacked. Like, you got to meditate. That's something to take into meditation and reflection. You're like, am I panicking? Am I afraid? Because what can happen is you see the lungs is supposed to process what? The liver, what? The kidneys, the heart, spleen. So now what happens when you hold anger in your spleen? That's the wrong place for it to be, right? What happens when panic is in the kidneys? That's where disease comes from, when you holding the wrong emotion in the wrong organ. So it's okay if the grief is in the lungs, you could just breathe it out, but you could be breathing all day, but if the grief is in your spleen, then you're in trouble. So now you need, that's why we say the consonants tone up. This is how you tonify your organs. So now when you do these things, now the herbs that you take work better, because now you're approaching it energetically also, and not just wanting the herb to do the whole magical thing on its own. So you got to treat yourself from the inside out and from the outside in with the herbs. All right, so where we at? Sweat. Okay. Now, the kidneys is dark blue, like almost black. What from your kidneys are? Oh wow! Don't even feel bad. Like one sister. I gotta tell this. Like, we said something about the prostate, and the sister was like, "Where is that at?" Like, she's like, "It's in the throat." Like, sister, you don't have a prostate. Goes back to knowledge of self. You've been walking around this body all this time. You ain't know, like, did y'all know where y'all liver was? It's your right side. Upper right side. Up here. Like right under the rib cage. The spleen is on your left side. Your lower back. So one of the things to test yourself is your spinal flexibility. Do you have a stiff back? Are you any of you known for having back pain?
Yeah, lower back.
All right, so that's either you're holding too much fear in your kidneys, or you might be holding anger in your kidneys. Like sometimes some people could get so pissed off they throw their back out. Like that's how you know that they're holding the energy in the wrong place.
I thought it was like very much like emotional.
But when you say emotional baggage, you're being vague. So it's a specific, like we have to find out what emotion is it. So it could be any one of those emotions, but it went to the wrong place.
So you know, like my heart is really hurt. Like no often it's very painful. That's very short.
Now you know what you can do. So like for the anger, go get the liver. So it's in the heart. That ain't good. That's it's like a heart attack or something like that. And see, the doctors don't know anything about this. They think this is pseudo when this will stop you from going to the doctor or having to get dangerous operations, because now you know how to maintain your health on its fundamental level. So you're helping your healer. So you want to go to the healer and be like, nah, you pretty much straight. I'm just going to do a little adjustments. You don't want your healer to be like, damn, you all jacked up. How you even walking right now? All right, let's do kidneys. So kidneys is dark blue. One of the first things you can do in the morning is to warm your kidneys, especially if the weather's changing now. Like cold weather is bad for the kidneys, shock the kidneys. That's why you get stiff in the winter. So put on the back. So with this, you want to bend forward. That was just a practice, you know, because most people don't know what you're talking about if I just try to describe it. So let's do it. So breathe in. Exhale. Dark blue energy. Keep on. Don't let it out. Like you letting the demon out.
I know that was a very sorry. I'm not sure what it was.
That's good. Let's try that one again.
Yeah, I can identify with that. I know with that.
So let the demon out. Don't worry how it sounds. Like you most of the time you'll be doing this in the process of your own home anyway. So don't feel no sort of way. Don't put no restrictions on you. This is how you get negative energy out your body.
I think it's that whole stuff. Like, it sounds really weird. It's almost like a
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Then straighten it back. Exhale.
I was saying, if you go first to stage now, look.
Yeah, leave it all y'all stuff.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go home and leaving on the summer. And also, David, I was gonna let all the people.
Yeah, we know. All right, so we do the heart now. So the heart is ha. Ha. Yeah. So this one is just the left hand on the middle of the chest. The color is red. I'm just down it. Long and red. Ready? Breathe in. Release. And just so you know, when you're home, you do each one 4 times. 4 times. And you'll, yeah, same with the vowels. Before you go to work, sometime before the beginning of the day. Or you could do it as many times as you want, because these things will bring you into balance also. So you could do them before you go to bed. I sometimes I don't like giving people protocols because 6 months later they ain't doing none of the protocols. You're like, oh, I'm so stressed out. Did you do the vowels, the sounds? Oh, no, I didn't do it. Yeah, but definitely before you leave the home, like, because this gets your aura straight. This is almost like an energetic cleanse in a sense.
So, what color is it? Red?
Red. A lot of people's spleens is off. Kidneys and spleens is weak for most people. So just for your notes, the S could be a Z to it, so it could be zzz, like a buzzing sound. The sh could be shoe. And the ha could be ha also. So those are just variations.
What were the colors for grief and anger?
Grief, the lungs is white.
Okay.
And the liver is green.
Oh, I thought that was a spleen.
No, we didn't do the spleen yet.
Oh, we didn't. Okay.
See, another one didn't know with it. So the liver is on your right side of your body, right under your rib cage. The spleen is on your left side of the body, approximately the same place. So the spleen is yellow or gold. So that's the one we're on now, right? All right, let's do it. So on the hand. So this one's gonna be left over right. I mean right over left. Right here. Ooh. All right. Exhale. Nah, yeah. I'm get the time right. Can I breathe in? Exhale, go yellow. All right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the demon. The demon back there. They're coming out through the throat. All right. Daily prayer to be said before not rising from the bed, before getting out of the bed. Yeah, before rising from Everybody should know this. This is the most basic part of the dua amasu and panetia sawek sum. So you're giving thanks to the Creator for another living day. Now this is the way you activate your heart chakra. So when you get out the bed, the first 4 steps that you take should be with your left foot. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you walk. So it said to activate the heart chakra. You see all the postures, in the Kemetic postures, they got the left foot forward, even militate left, 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 right, left. So to get you in tune with your heart, or to start off your day with heart. And the heart is always associated with courage. And being melanated in America, you're going to need courage to get out of bed each and every day. Because you're going to feel like the world is against you. So you're going to need all the support you can get. Now, here we get to the regular boring stuff about Medu. So we got the sacred stuff out the way. It's like I like to approach things spiritually, but we got to go over the left brain side, too.
I have a question.
No questions, baby.
Oh. That's wrong. Okay, this is kind of a silly question, but in terms of using Medu, I know it's important to pronounce things correctly because the proper pronunciations also give it the right energy. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if it's a typo or not, but in the Art of Prayer, because I've been reading it to try to memorize it and I'm getting there, I noticed that that first prayer that you were saying that we should be saying before we even get out of bed, which is really great to hear. I've been struggling with whether or not this is a typo on posture 4. It says ementen in as opposed to in the previous postures 3 and 5, it says ement in. So is it supposed to be pronounced in posture 4 ementen in, or is that a typo and it's actually supposed to be ement in?
Like it's hard for me to just jump right into the middle of something. Like Kemet speaking.
What did she say?
So the prayer is Amasu and Panatir, Sauexu Ement in Panatir.
Okay, so it's not ementen in.
No, it's Ement in Panatir. Okay.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics is the Greek word. We all know hiero and glyphos. Hiero means sacred. Glyphos means carving. So it means sacred carving. So it's nothing evil about the word. Don't call it. We'll call it hieroglyphics. Medu. Like it means the same thing. They just saying it in Greek. And it also translates as priestly carving. So it's just good to know the root of the words that you're using. So Medu is the language of the divine. Divine words. Your words support and protect or protect you in power or from power. They are vibrational codes that invoke divinity. Sacred language reserved for priests, rites, rituals. Medu transcends the limitations of the English language. So now there's conversational stuff, and then there's Medu. Now the writing sesh Medu was always reserved for the priests. It was just always that way. That's where you get the idea of spells, so-called magic spells, about spelling words out. The average person had a trade. So a blacksmith didn't have no business spelling. Like he didn't need that. A person that's working in the field didn't need that. So nobody was being judged for whether they could so-called read or write. That was exclusively something priests did in temples to deal with the deities and stuff. That was their job to keep the community in sync with the divine will of the universe, and it was the community's job to provide food, clothing, and shelter for the nation. That's just how things are. Everybody can't be walking around deep. Everybody didn't have that type of time on their hands. So you should see it as a privilege that we have somebody like Seshnitu Sanjeti that's actually teaching Medu Neter, because this was never done this way before in ancient times. And that's why you will also see a lot of people drop out of class, because it's just not in a lot of people's genetic code to do it. They just didn't, because it was exclusively priest. So if you got something priestly in your genetic code, your family line, you'll probably take to it real well. And if you don't, you could probably just take it or leave it. Medu Neter. So that glyph down, those two glyphs at the bottom, that actually says Medu Neter. That's the two glyphs for that first glyph on the left. That's what's called a walking stick. And the glyph to the right is either a flag or an axe. It's undetermined. Some people say it's a flag. Some people say it's an axe. But I'll give a double meaning. So what is a stick for? A walking stick is for guidance and to protect you from animals or whatever. So Medu. So these are words that guide, words that protect. And then Neter, the axe, is a symbol of strength. You cut down something or whatever. So the axe represents power. So Medu Neter actually means words of power, even though we have Hekau in our tradition means words of power. Those are more like ritualistic. Those are certain codes, but the language it's just meant to be words of power just in general. So there's no really secret words that no one knows anymore that we don't know the language, so we forgot the words of power, how they invoke the deities. If you're reading Medu Neter and you're reading the text, that is the words of power. So it all comes down to your intonation. So they were slick. They never put the vowels in anything. So they always just had consonants. You have to understand, Kemet was always, am I going too fast? Kemet was divided into upper Kemet, and lower Kemet. And then there was 42 different towns or cities or nomes in between, all and up and down the Nile. But these were different nationalities. These were different tribes in 42. So there were different languages in ancient Kemet. That's why the word Nasut Bidi actually means the king. So the word Nasut comes from the word Sut. That's the word for king in the south. And the word Bit is the word for king up north. So when that person unified upper and lower, he was the king. So they just used the word from both regions to let the people recognize that this person is that dude. Now, so when you see Medu Neter on the walls, it's never going to have the vowels. So that's to say, so if somebody from up north, they can read it and they'll pronounce it a certain way, but we all know it's the same word. The person from the south, they have a different dialect. They can also say it's the word Htep. It could be HTP. How do you say HTP? That's why we say Htep, because that's just an approximation. So somebody up north could say Hatep or Hatop. You hear some people say Hotep or whatever. No one's wrong. That's just your dialect where you come from. So we don't got to get into this whole trolling people with saying stuff wrong. Like people from Brooklyn, you could tell they speak a certain way. We still speak in English and be like, oh, where you from? Yeah, oh yeah. Like even now with Medu Neter, the people in Brooklyn, they tend to roll their R's. You ever hear like they're not wrong. It's just like, oh, you're from Brooklyn. In Jersey, we say Neter. In Brooklyn, they say Neter or Inter. But the point is, do you know what we're saying? As long as you can communicate. So that dichotomy always existed in the Nile Valley. There was no hard rule on that. It's just where you come from is determined how you pronounce it.
So the T is good.
She asked, was the T and the D similar? Like, yes. It's just certain emphasis on the palate of your mouth, whether something is a T or a D. She says, we say do-I in New York, they say to-I. Both of them are correct. Both of them were used. To my knowledge, do-I is the older, and then to-I is like Middle Egyptian, Middle Kingdom, but it's still all the same word. Like some people say Tahuti, and some people say Jehuti. When it's neither or, it's just the language is so complicated that our tongues are lazy, so we just settle with "t" and "j" when it's something in between both that our tongue is not even used to doing. It's more like it's more like "druti" or something like the Sanskrit cats are probably could say it because they're used to using their tongue like that. Like the English language has got our tongue very lazy that we don't do justice to these words. All these are words of power, and we just get lazy, "Tahuti, or whatever. So once again, Medu Netra could be interpreted as words of power. So once again, when you start contemplating the language, that's why like the priests, they had to learn Medu Netra for 10 years before they could move on to the next level. So that's how deep and insignificant this language is, just being able to contemplate what's on that wall. Now you figure like they got to draw it this way, not even draw it, they got to carve it this way. And then the priest be like, "That's excellent. Now do the same thing on this wall, but the opposite way. And it better be straight."
Is it true that Senate they went from right to left to stimulate certain part of the brain versus in the state they have a right left to right? Yeah, I think I think for us that originally they wrote, that's up and down, right to left.
Yeah.
Because it had to do with the
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Actually, most languages, ancient languages in the East go that way. All right, versions of the Kemetic language, hieratic. Remember, hieratic means priestly, sacred, truth. Demotic, the popular language. That's where the word Democrat comes from. People, the language of the people. And Coptic, that's Christian Ethiopia. So Coptic are Christianized Kemetic people. That's what the word Coptic means. Egyptian Kemites. After Christianity colonized, that's what they look like. And once again, the Kemetic priests actually created the Greek alphabet. Remember, the white folks don't got no they don't have no language. So the Kemetic priests created Greek so they could communicate the language of our ancestors. Like y'all heard of that thing called the Rosetta Stone, right? Yeah. That's how we even cracked the code on how to read Medu Netra. It was Greek, then it was hieratic, and then there was Demotic, I think, under that. So these three things said the same thing, but because since they thought Medu Netra was a dead language, so they just did a letter for letter comparison with the Greek to the Medu Netra, and that's how they figured out how to break the code, along with speaking to indigenous people of the area. So let's show them, you have some pictures of, so hieratic is up in that left register. Can you blow up the Coptic? Yeah, yes. So hieratic is like cursive, Demotic is shorthand, and Coptic is his own thing. Like
say that again?
Hieratic is cursive, Demotic is shorthand. Demotic was more used like vain purposes, like receipts and stuff like that. You're not gonna find too many sacred texts, and that's why it was shorthand. I can't even. That's Coptic. I can't even gonna lie, act like I know how to read that. Yeah, I see the Arabic too. No, that's Coptic. All right, go to the next slide. That's the Rosetta Stone. Go to the top, the left register. Can you blow that one up if it's possible? So you see that stone at the top is Greek in the middle. Is Medu Neter, traditional Medu Neter, and at the bottom is, I think, it's hieratic. Yeah. Yeah, same exact thing. That's how they figure out the see, that was what she just showed. That would be the hieratic. See, that's cursive. Oh yeah. Like I said, that was, yeah, I remember we talked about Ptolemy. She said, what's the significance of the three language on the sun? That's the, remember we spoke about Ptolemy? Ptolemy is the Greek rulers after Kemet fell, like after Alexander the Great. His general was named Ptolemy, Ptolemy the First. So Ptolemy had his own dynasty. Cleopatra is part of the Ptolemy dynasty, so she was not even black. It was 6 Cleopatras, and that's a title itself too. So she's the one we're talking about that's so popular is the 6th Cleopatra. So Ptolemy, that thing is from his time. So remember, they're trying to learn the language. So that was some type of what's the word for it? It was something mundane. It wasn't even that serious. Some type of receipt or something like that, or decree or something like that. That's what it was. And remember, so if they're ruling Kemet, everybody in Kemet had to learn Greek because it's no longer ruled by native people. So if the rulers are now Greek, so you gotta kind of like how we gotta know Spanish now because all these Spanish people moved in and stuff. So now you can't get jobs unless you're bilingual and stuff like that. So that was the equivalent of what was going on back then. The Greeks were, and at least up in lower Kemet, the Greeks were flooding in that area. So they had took over upper Kemet. So Manetho, he was a Kemite. He was pretty much like an African American at that point. So he just happened to still know the traditional language. So he had to know Greek to speak our history to them. So you need that cleansing too. I'll go to the next one. So this is, she had just spoke on this read Medu Neter according to how the glyphs are facing. The glyphs always face the beginning of the sentence. We only, you have your prayer in the room? Oh, it's in the other room on the floor. It's in the other room on the floor. So,
actually, so what you call it right here?
Actually, on the slide itself, you see. Oh, that's up and down.
Also, if this doesn't also to left and right because, like,
show them.
Okay. So why I pulled this out is because on this side, on this side of this image is words that are related to this person. And so the writing is read from, left to right based on the fact that it's associated with this person. On this side is from right to left based on the fact that it's this writing associated with this person. So this is a good example because you can see, like, here you'll see this snake, which is like the letter F, and the head is towards the, I guess this is the left side, but like when you're reading it, it's the right side. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And so that tells you to read it this way. Okay, but over here, here's a chick, and the chick is facing this way, so that's telling you on this side, you got to read it that way. You understand what I'm saying? So you look at the head, That's how I like to do it. I look at the animals or like the people, and I look and see what way they're facing. So you see here, you got the Haru bird, and it's facing that way. So that means I should read it in this direction. You understand what I'm saying? And then on this side, you see these faces, and they're facing this way, which means I should read it that way. Y'all understand what I'm saying? So
It's called reading into the text.
right.
So can you put it up to the camera?
Yeah.
Because they straining like, what's going on over there?
All right. So like I was just saying, so you find the faces.
They can hear you with that.
Oh, I don't know. They can. But anyway, you find the faces, and then you read in this direction because of the way that the faces are. So this bird is facing that way, so you would read over. And then, of course, you would read over and then down, right? So like down, then down, then down. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And on this side, now we see that the faces are facing a different direction over here. So now here I would read this and then down, then this and then down. You understand what I'm saying? So on this particular release, there's not just the challenge of reading right to left, but also reading left to right and reading top to bottom. So that's why I pulled this out. I feel like this is a good example of the multi-directional structure of Medu Neter.
And it's also, who is that on there?
This is Haru.
All right, so it's that way because the supplicant is giving the adoration to Haru, and Haru is speaking back. So it's a conversation, it's a dialogue going on. So that's why they have both directions on there. So the person facing the deity is reading that way, and the deity will be speaking that way. So that's just, you're supposed to know that when you're looking at a glyph, so you even know how to go about reading it.
Then I recommend that on how.
Sinjetti's class.
Yeah.
Sinjetti's better.
You can have big one. I don't know if you have to do it online. Yeah, whole thing to buy. That's okay.
Get the book.
You want to see the first?
Yes, that was interesting enough. Sinjetti gave the same example in his class. So I'm like, if that was,
I have to sit over and over, kind of be able to.
Yeah.
If you were to send it to me, I would probably just pass that around so you could
Here you go. Now, does everyone have this? You have this at home?
What is that, Lucia?
Nah. You have this?
Oh, no, I don't have that.
No.
Okay, so it has the Medu Neter in it. Like, don't worry about trying to understand it. Like when you're learning Medu Neter, like all the glyphs, since we read in English, all the glyphs will be reading left to right. So everything is facing that direction. This is just easier to understand. Since it's
This is a better starting place, absolutely. In terms of like learning the language, because everything is going to fit in the way that we speak as English speakers. You know, we're accustomed to the right to left. So it's already oriented right to left.
All right, even this, all of them are facing what direction? Yeah, exactly. So don't get thrown off one day. You'll see it, the others, you're like, it's backwards. You're like, no, that's the way it is. Yeah. They feeling all left out online. That's what I get for not showing up for class. All right.
All right, so you can see here, like, this is already set up, like I was saying, so this is already set up like sentences. So it's got the, one sentence, one sentence.
It's going to be on the screen.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So Medu consists of alphabets, which is the letters, bilaterals, that's a symbol with 2 sounds, trilaterals, that's a symbol with 3 sounds, and what you call determinatives. And determinatives generally they don't have a sound value. They're at the end of a word to help you decipher what the actual letters are saying. Y'all understand that?
Ooh.
I don't even give no examples on here.
I did not, but who's the release actually? Actually, a good example, I'll give you a good example. The word off is actually, or the symbol off is actually a determinative. Like, most people don't know that. Most people think it's just like that symbol itself is a word. But like, if you see in Medu, you'll see actually most of the time there's a wave of water, and then there's the symbols. Most of the time when you see the word onk, you'll see the N symbol here, and then you'll see the it's the placenta. It's like oh, that's true. But so that's why it's not on here. Okay, but you'll see those 2 symbols. So it's the N, the wave of water, and then it's a circle with lines going through it. That's called it's a placenta. And that's associated with that k sound, which is like a double sound. All right, so the word itself is really k. You understand what I'm saying? And so, like, how we know the meaning is because we see the onk. So when we write shorthand, a lot of times people just put up a symbol of an onk, and even like in this relief, you just see a symbol of the onk, but the word itself is actually spelled NKH. Like, those 2 symbols are actually the sound value. Does that make sense? Another example will be like, I saw it on here too, this round symbol that has the X that goes through it. That's a good example of a determinative that refers to what I was saying in a way. I know, I gotta turn around. I gotta do inner room and then turn around. But this is a circle with an X, like, and that's a determinative that represents place. So, like, if you see that, it's usually referring to like a town or a city. So that's the determinative, or an example of a determinative, like I was just mentioning, the determinative for town or place.
That's the word I. First doesn't have a sound value to tell what that word looks like. Because if I took this away, you don't know how to translate that word. It's just a sound. So y'all need to come so I can show you. I was talking about this word right here, nook. It says I am. So this is a determinative. This man sitting squatting. It has no sound value. It has no sound value. So this is the n, and this is a k sound. So this is a basket. This is a jar. So now if I just took that man out of there, it'd say nook, but you won't know how to translate it. You'd be like, okay, what's that mean? So you'll be like, it means something dealing with a person. You know, so each one of these words have determinatives. So every word has a determinative. So this is what I would call a downside of this type of class, because back in the day, everybody would be here and I would have the dry erase board and I would actually drawing all this out, and I would have all of y'all come up and try to draw some of the alphabet like we would go through, because there's a technique on how to draw it. You ain't got to be an extra artist or whatever, but it's just it's a certain technique on how to draw it, like with 1 or 2 strokes instead of you actually trying to draw all the details and stuff like that. Yeah. So anyway, so like this class goes smooth in person. And Go to the next slide.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. So yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I realized the practice.
I'll go back to the alphabet. They gave that out. Yeah, so like I would have had everybody write out their name in the alphabet. So Aussie thought yours would be that A. Where's the Aussie? Is the second S in it? Is that more like a Z sound?
You don't want to be S.
All right.
Originally, it's a Z.
All right, so it'll be the door bolt. That's a door bolt. You know, locks. And yeah. So Brooke will be the B. That's a leg. Then the mouth would be the R. The O is the lasso. So you have two of those in your name. The K, K is the basket. And you have an E at your name, end of your name. Yeah, so that's the reed leaf. Justin would be the snake. The chick. That's a folded. The S is a folded towel. The T is a loaf of bread. We're gonna count that other I, or we just give them.
So my name is without it was written.
Okay, I got you.
So that's the reed leaf, and then he gets the wave of water for the N. Yeah. You know. So Aussie thought you would have Aussie. Is it two S's at the beginning? Yeah. No, we just go on.
Not for nothing, like, you would never, like, really, it's an exercise more than anything, because, like, so, like, for example, a sound, stop, or stop, or could be a word in itself, you know what I'm saying? So, like, you might not necessarily, if you were doing real writing, you probably might, like, use the symbol that means stop instead of writing S-A-T. You know what I'm saying? So it's more of an exercise than like an actual like translation.
All right, now lastly, next, some vocabulary words you could add to your repertoire. There's some corrections on some. This list is old. Let me say, so a nook, who nook, that's a nook, owl nook, that's a nook, A-U, nook.
Where are you? Oh, this is it should be a nook, owl nook.
Yeah. Same with my pool, my owl, my
You say
yeah. With everyone,
like, what about multi-pepper?
owl, never.
It's not
Yeah, people don't be using it anyway for neb, owl, neb, and everything else. It kind of stands. So, like I said, these are just
vocabulary that you can integrate into your like conversation or your conversation.
yeah, and that's it. Any questions, comments?
No questions? Y'all good?
I have a question. So how long is it going to take for you guys to get through our papers, and when will we get word on, how we did and stuff?
I didn't even hear what.
She asked about the paper.
Oh, you asking about the paper?
Yeah, can you hear me?
It just sounded muffled. I couldn't make out what
Okay.
you said.
Oh, because my mic was on my chest. No, I was just asking like when we would, hear back about our papers. I just wanted to know.
By next class.
By next class.
Okay.
What you say, Aussie? It's a lot of information.
Yeah. I like how clear information, like take home practice, like immediately.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, then let's think about.
Right on time. I'm in raw the six nested.
I'm in raw
the six nested.
I'm in raw neben onk.
I'm in raw the six nested.
I'm in raw neben onk.
I'm in raw the six nested.
I'm in raw neben onk.
Stu, Johnson.
Dulu onku Johnson.
Right, good. Wow, the news.
Do I nectar?
Do I nectar?